We make sure we've switched off all phones, electronic devices and such like, because we will be live on YouTube in 10 seconds maybe. And we're good to go. Thank you. Well, welcome to the County Planning Committee on today, Tuesday, the 6th of February 2024. I'm George Richardson and I'll be chair of this committee and chairing today's meeting. Before we start, we have a number of officers with us. I'll now ask to introduce themselves, and I'll start with Kirsty on my right.
Kirsty Charlton, Committee Services.
Neil Carter, I'm the solicitor to the committee.
Stephen Reid, I'm the Planning Manager, Chair.
Louisa Olivier, Senior Planning Officer.
Jennifer Jennings, Principal Planning Officer.
Lisa Marina, Senior Planning Officer.
Phil Harrison, Highway Development Manager.
Thank you, one and all. Now we move on to the agenda. Have we any apologies for absence, Kirsty?
Councillor Kevin Shaw.
And any substitute members?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest from anyone? Craig, your hand was up first.
Thank you. Craig Martin, Councillor for North Lodge and Chelsea Street. Item 5A, it's within my ward. I have discussed it, but I have not given an opinion on how I'll be voting today, and I come to today with an open mind, but listen to the debate.
Jim, was your hand up?
Yes, Chair. Just 5B, Millennium Way is in my constituency, and also a member of the Stockton and Darlington Railway, which have contributed to the debate on this. So I haven't got a pecuniary interest or any otherwise relative to the application. So I'll be staying in the room and I'll be voting and taking part. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Jim. Just because I'm looking at you, Anita, could I have a word with you before you leave, please? Thank you. On to the minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of January 2024. Can we accept those minutes? Thank you. So it's over today to the applications to be determined today, starting with application 5A, land at west of Drum Industrial Estate, Chesley Street. And it's Louisa who's going to present to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. So this is the application site outlined in red. As you can see, it's within the west of the Drum Industrial Estate and is surrounded by large industrial units to the north and east and a group of smaller industrial units to the south. The green dashed line to the west indicates a right-of-way adjacent to the site, and beyond this, to the west, is pasture land, and further west, approximately 200 metres distant, is the settlement of Perkinsville. And to the south of that is the A693 road from Stanley to Chesley Street and the A1. So we have here an aerial photograph of the site showing the former quarry site is now semi-improved neutral grassland, a new habitat forming over bare land. To the south you can see areas of landscape bund that screens the industrial estate from the A693, and to the west there's also a tree belt adjacent to the Perkinsville dwellings. These photographs show the site. The first shows the site in the context of the surrounding units to the north and east. And the two photographs on the right show the semi-natural grassland, open mosaic and shrub habitat on the site. And you've got some evidence of litter there too. This left photograph shows the existing Belmouth Junction into the site, which is to be upgraded. The two photographs on the right show the areas around the edge of the site, which will incorporate the on-site ecological mitigation in the form of butterfly scrapes and landscaping. So this is a site plan showing the unit located to the southwest of the site with an upgraded access for service vehicles and a new access for staff and visitors. The development includes car parking to meet the new council standards, including EV, accessible and cycle parking in the northwest of the site. Servicing is located to the east of the site, and landscaped areas are predominantly around the edges of the site. Traffic will access the site via the A693 roundabout, and structural planting is proposed along the western boundary to screen any fencing and the building over time. Around the unit and parking areas, planting proposals include hedgerow, tree and grass planting. The current uneven land will be remodelled slightly to form a level plateau for the building to sit on, and this slide shows a typical elevation design. In respect of the elevations, you can see the unit has glazing features to ensure a legible entrance to the building, and the unit will incorporate various shades of grey with green cladding for visual interest and to break up the overall mass of the building. We have a policy update, and the committee report refers to paragraph numbering within the MPPF, which is subsequently changed with the latest version of the MPPF. This does not alter the advice and the intent of the policy. So turning to statutory consultee responses, highways have no objection and request a condition to address the creation of the accesses. National Highways have no objection. Active Travel England have no objection, subject to conditions to ensure the provision of cycle parking prior to occupation, and that travel plan measures are implemented, monitored, and further measures secured if necessary following monitoring. They accept that the proposal does not include footpath improvements to link to the cycle network, but recommend contributions towards this. The Coal Authority have no objection, Northumbrian Water have not commented, and the Lead Local Flood Authority have no objection. In terms of other consultee responses, Durham Constabulary have no objection, Business Durham offer their full support, Spatial Policy consider the proposed use acceptable, Landscape have no objection, Design have no objection, Environmental Health and Consumer Protection, which includes nuisance air quality and contaminated land sections, have no objections, subject to conditions. Sustainable Travel would welcome a financial contribution for better access to a cycle link and request a full travel plan. Passenger Transport request a contribution of £80,000 per annum. Ecology request a precautionary approach and biodiversity compensation. The Trees Officer requests tree protection fencing, and the Public Right of Way team provide advice regards encroachment and support any improvements to Footpath 5. Turning to written representations, North Lodge Parish Council raised concerns over the increase of traffic and requests any 106 monies to be allocated to the parish area. We've got one letter of objection from a business on the Drum Industrial Estate, and they're concerned about traffic, mud on the highway and vermin due to displacement. So in summary, the site is allocated for commercial development in the County Durham Plan under Policy 2. Therefore, it's acceptable in principle, and this carries significant positive weight. There are also significant economic benefits in the form of securing 196 jobs for the region and a further 50 additional jobs in the next 5 years. Impacts to highway safety, the character of the area, public rights of way are acceptable. Technical details can be suitably addressed with conditions. Immediate impacts can be controlled and are insufficient to withhold plan permission. The poor locational sustainability in this case is accepted. Precautionary on-site ecological mitigation is acceptable to conserve the priority species and habitat on the site. The net loss of biodiversity, whilst regrettable, is accepted as compensation is secured to fund off-site biodiversity on council land. Therefore, in terms of the planning balance, it is considered that the benefits outweigh the impacts and approval is recommended, subject to a 106 agreement to secure the off-site biodiversity and a Section 39 agreement to secure its management. Thank you.
Thank you, Louisa. Now we have no speakers of any sort, either for or against, so it's straight over to the committee and into debate, please. David Boyes, please.
It's a question for the officer. You mentioned about improvements to the entrance onto the site. What improvements are we talking about? I couldn't really see any in the body of the work, but how would this mitigate any of the traffic issues that fellow members of the site and other members of the public are raising?
So I believe that the current Belmouth junction is to be upgraded. I believe that that would mean that it would need to be widened. There will be a further access for staff going into the north of the site. In terms of the comments that have been raised in terms of the traffic, the amount of traffic for this proposal is actually less than was previously approved at committee a couple of years ago, especially at the peak times. And also, within the last few years, there's been a number of improvements in that area to cope with additional traffic for the industrial estate. So it's not considered by the Highways Officer or Highways England that there's any need for any further additional highways improvements upon what has been proposed with the application.
Thank you. Happy with that, David? Jonathan Elmer, please.
Thank you, Chair. This looks like one of those, there's quite a few sites like this in industrial areas around the county where the area's been sort of just left on its own for a long period of time, and it's naturally revegetated and has become quite valuable from an ecological perspective. So it's very regrettable to see the loss of that ecological value, but it is, you know, I can see that the applicant's made some effort to retain what's there on the site, and that you've conditioned a fund to be created to compensate through improvements off-site. So that's a really welcome trend as well. I question there as to whether or not the goal is to reach an ecological net gain. Now, the other point I wanted to pick up on is Active Travel England's comments, who pick up on the fact that it wasn't possible, or I don't know whether it's possible or not, but the applicant linked into the cycle network of the area. Again, you know, we want to see every effort made that's possible to enable people to participate in active travel. And I note that the council's sustainable travel team have been asked to feedback on this particular application. Again, that's a really positive step. And but they've asked for the applicant to provide a travel plan. Can you confirm whether the applicant is going to provide a travel plan or not? Thank you.
So yes, in terms of the travel plan, they will be providing one. It will be required by condition, so they will have to do that, yeah. Mm-hmm. In terms of the net gain, there is an actual net loss on this site, which is regrettable. Obviously, net gain is not mandatory until the 12th of February, but obviously we do have a policy that we're looking for 10% net gain on our sites. It is regrettable that they can't achieve the net gain on the site, and that's due to the size of the building. It's constrained the site so significantly. They've looked at a number of other sites around in the area and other options to see how they could deliver net gain. But it's not been possible to deliver net gain as such. What really, it's almost like it's breaking even on this site with that financial contribution. So it's mitigating its harm, but there won't be net gain from this development.
Thank you, Louisa. Craig, over to you next, please.
Thank you. Yeah, Drum is a fantastic employment site, and it's really good to see that it is getting bigger to get even more jobs into the Chelsea Street area. And I think this is quite a positive application. I'm really grateful that the Section 106 funding for ecology has a nod. It is pointed towards the direction of Chelsea Street, as opposed to a previous application where it was kind of ring fenced and it was going to go the other side of the county. So I'm really grateful that the harm that is taking place in Chelsea Street, there's going to be effort put into to fixing the harm in Chelsea Street. Just to answer I can probably answer the question for the kind of travel issues, is that one of the big problems of the industrial estate is the footpaths are a bit of a mess, i.e. it's really difficult because they're not all adopted, and a lot of it is owned by various businesses, and is a bane of the industrial estate in terms of trying to get, you know, it's one of the big complaints that workers on the site have, as in is, if I want to walk, if I want to cycle, and apart from sort of, which we don't have the power to do, is to strong-arm organisations that own land, because it's not council land, and it's an ever-ongoing problem. And I'm not sure what the solution to the problem is, but yeah, it is mindful that we've got a fantastic cycle track right on the edge of this industrial estate, and it can be a bit difficult to get to. Comment on the traffic, I'm really grateful that Councillor Boyes has raised the traffic issue, because this is the big concern that residents have with this industrial estate that runs through them. I am actually working with Strategic Highways to look at mitigations to try and make the situation more bearable for residents. But this is, of course, outside the planning discussion. But I just want to note it. So from my position, I think it's very hard to object to this. So I will not object to it, and I will be in full support of it, because it is going to be a massive benefit to the wider economic situation of County Durham and Chesney Street.
Thank you, Craig. Patricia, and then Eleanor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, really, I take on board one of the things I was concerned about was the biodiversity issue. But I do think, like all planning applications, it's a balance. This is an industrial area, and that is a considerable number of jobs that will be created. With more people moving into County Durham, they are going to need jobs. I'd like to think that the employment will be reasonably local, so that local people will benefit from this application, and therefore I don't see a problem. I do think that the benefits do outweigh the negatives, and I'll be voting for this as well. Thank you.
Thank you, but Alan, you're next, please.
Yeah, thank you, George. Again, yeah, echo what everybody's saying. I think it's a brilliant application here, and win-win for the area, particularly for the jobs which is going to come here. Great, well-connected site in relation to the A1M, the A693, and further afield. There was one question, was the donation towards the contribution for the public transport for the £80,000 per annum. How long was that to run for, Louisa?
I believe it was for 5 years it would be required.
Thank you, Alan. Jim, you want to come in, please?
Yes, Chair, very briefly from me, just in terms of the application, it's got everything it needs as far as I can see, and I'll just go along with what everybody else has said. There's no need to double up on any of that, and I'd just like to second Alan's proposal.
Thank you for that. Jonathan, you want to come back? Thank you.
Yes, Chair, just a very quick word. I think it's a mistake to sort of fall into, I think it's a false narrative that it's either jobs, economy or wildlife. Quite often you can have both, and it doesn't actually cost that much to have more on a development to have both. So generally speaking, I'm looking for opportunities of making all these things work together. And actually I think this is a great application, bar the two aspects that I raise. So I'm not going to be trying to oppose it. It's a question of trying to optimise it.
Thank you, Jonathan. Excuse me. Does anyone else wish to contribute? Jim, your microphone's on.
Sorry, Chair.
Well, we've got a mover and a seconder to go with the officer's recommendation of approval. All those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. I'll just switch seats, I think, and have Lisa up and on to item B. second application is agenda item 5B. We have no objectors or speakers, but we do have a supporter who's only observing and not speaking. So whenever you're ready, Lisa, it's over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the application site as edged is a vacant parcel of land located on Merchant Park, which is within Aycliffe Business Park. The business park is located approximately 1.5 miles south of Newton Aycliffe Town Centre and under 1 mile from junction 59 of the A1M. The site in question is located adjacent to the Hitachi Rail Factory, which sits to the west. Aycliffe Business Park sits to the north, which has recently been constructed. Open space is located to the south. To the east is the Stockton and Darlington Railway, and to the north of Hitachi, consent has recently been allowed on appeal for the construction and operation of a thermal treatment facility for clinical and hazardous waste. So we have an aerial photograph of the site here. Again, the site is edged in red. Consent is sought for the erection of 3 industrial buildings, including ancillary office space. A main access road is proposed to the middle of the site, with 1 larger unit proposed to the west of the access and 2 smaller units to the east. Each unit will be served by its own car parking area and dedicated area for loading and plant areas. Outline consent has previously been approved on the site as part of a wider development to create Merchant Park. Plot 2 is being built out, that being the industrial unit to the north, as has Plot 3A, which was the Hitachi site. And as stated, the consent has recently been granted for the waste facility unit, known as Plot 1. This application site is the last remaining site to be developed as part of the previously approved outline consent. As part of the outline consent, the site in question formed part of Plot 3, which was for a larger industrial unit, however has subsequently been subdivided. So we've got some photos of the site. The top right-hand photo, you can just see Hitachi in the distance. And the bottom right-hand photo is the main access road leading up towards the site and Hitachi. We've got some CGIs of the site provided by the applicant. So you can see that the top one there shows the buildings which are proposed, and the bottom one shows the buildings just to the north of Hitachi on the site there. And then you can sort of see the industrial estate to the left of it, and then the waste sort of diagonally across from the proposed site. So we've got the proposed layout here, which, as I said, we've got 1 larger unit, and then the 2 smaller units with the access running through the middle of the site. The next few slides, just some indicative, some elevations of the units. This is warehouse 1, 2, and 3. They're all sort of typical industrial style units which are proposed. In terms of consultee responses, we've got no objection from Highways, Drainage, the Police and Great Aycliffe Town Council. Network Rail and Northumbrian Water have provided no response. Business Durham provides support for the proposal. In respect of internal consultees, in respect of environmental health, both in terms of air quality, contamination and noise, they have no objection, subject to additional conditions to provide the relevant information required. So in terms of ecology, design, archaeology, public rights of way and tree officers, they all raise no objection to the scheme. Landscape, while generic plant details have been provided, full landscaping details are required, and this can be controlled via condition. In respect of policy, no objection has been raised from them. They consider the proposal to accord with Policy 2 of the County Durham Plan and Policy R3 of the Neighbourhood Plan, given the site is on an allocated site. In terms of public responses, 1 letter has been received from the Friends of the Stockton and Darlington Railway. They raise no objection to the proposal, basically due to the distances between them, and that they consider that the heritage asset would be preserved in that instance. In terms of the main issues, we have the principle of the development. The site is on an allocated site, and as such, the principle of the development is considered acceptable. In terms of scale and design, the proposal, when read in relation to the surrounding buildings and associated landscape, is considered to have an acceptable impact on the street scene and the wider estate area. In respect of the surrounding heritage asset, which is the railway, the Design and Conservation Officer have confirmed that the assessment provided by the applicants correctly concludes that the proposal will cause no harm. In terms of sustainability, a BREEAM assessment report has been provided which shows that the proposal will achieve a very good rating. There's also solar panels, etc., to be added to the site, but these will be subject to condition depending on the end user of each plot. In terms of noise and impact on surrounding residents, the proposal is considered acceptable as there are highway and pedestrian safety issues. The transport assessment shows there's no significant issues and there are public rights of way within close proximity to the site. Landscape also raised no objections, whilst there are some loss of existing trees, they are considered of young age and the mitigation planting proposed is considered acceptable, subject to the full planting details being agreed. In respect of contamination and drainage, no objection has been raised. And in respect of ecology, the site is covered in the district level licensing scheme for Great Crested Newt. However, there was a wider mitigation agreed as part of the Hitachi and the wider outline consent, and the licence will cover this site as well. So subject to accordance with that licence, there's no objections raised in that respect. There will be a loss of biodiversity units on the site itself. However, as stated within the report, a wider BNG metric was carried out across the wider site, which includes the Hitachi and the other sites previously mentioned. And the results of that wider metric confirm a surplus of habitats, which is more than available to offset the loss on this proposal. Therefore, this is considered acceptable in that respect. There will be a Section 39 agreement to ensure that though the habitats created on the site itself will be controlled. So in summary, the site is allocated for employment uses within Policy 2 of the County Durham Plan. The principle of the development is therefore considered acceptable. The proposal is also considered to have an acceptable impact on the visual amenity of the wider area, given the design of the structures are considered to be in keeping with others within the area and appropriate landscaping is being proposed. The development would not be prejudicial to highway safety and would deliver well-designed pedestrian routes and sufficient cycle and car parking provision. The proposal is also considered to have an acceptable impact on the amenity of the surrounding businesses and residents. The application therefore is recommended for approval, subject to a Section 39 agreement to secure the long-term management, maintenance and monitoring of the biodiversity land and the conditions set out within the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lisa. Well done. Does any member have a question for Lisa at this stage? No, then it's straight into the debate. Jim Atkinson.
Yes, Chair, as I said earlier on, that this is in my constituency. The application has a very nice flow to it. We usually used to objections and various things like that, but there are no objections from the consultees, none from any members of the public, none from Great Aycliffe Town Council. The Friends have an interest and would normally object, but there's nothing for them to object to. There's a big project going on around this building at the moment. But as I say, it has a nice, they looked at it properly. There's no objections. It's like a clear run through for me. But on top of that, there's the economic prospects, the job prospects, all of a great interest to us all, not just for the Newton Aycliffe itself, but also for the county and for the North East. So I'm more than happy to propose we go with the officer's recommendation on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Jonathan, Jonathan Elmer.
Again, I think it's pretty thoroughly considered application, so I've got no real sort of objections against it. Just some points to raise, I guess. Applications like this that create a tremendous amount of roof space, you know what I'm going to say. There's obviously opportunities for solar generation, even if it's not to power the building. So often we get solar fields created which have the impact of sometimes, you know, using up valuable agricultural land. So there obviously is opportunities to tie these things together. That's a proactive position that the planning department need to take when they're advising applicants that, you know, that are making applications. I know through having surveyed that entire area personally about 20 years ago that it's extremely valuable for wildlife. And the Great Aycliffe Parish, actually the most valuable wildlife areas are concentrated right in the middle of that industrial estate. So it shows you that, you know, something left for 50 or 60 years can become very important. That's not to say that this particular application will impact directly, because it's clearly not. But it's counterintuitive. That's the point I'm trying to make. And it's good to see that the applicant has worked with Hitachi to try and make sure that these things are considered at a larger scale anyway. So great to see that. And yes, so I guess I just think there are opportunities with the development of this scale to do more on the electricity generation side of things. I guess that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jonathan. Anybody else wish to comment, contribute? Alan.
Yeah, it's just to second Jim's proposal to accept the officer's recommendation. Chair, thank you.
Thank you. No further comment. We've got a mover and now we've got a seconder, thank goodness. So it's over to the vote. All those in favour of approval? Once again, that's unanimous. Thank you very much for that. And now that concludes today's business. Thank you for your attendance. If you just sit still for a minute until we get the meeting closed on YouTube.